Hello again, everybody. If it's your first time with us today, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. We're going to be continuing our series on beginner strategy here today. And what we're going to be looking at is the concept of tempo. What is tempo in chess? And how can we gain time? How can we use that to our advantage? So when we're talking about tempo, we're talking about the concept of time, being able to get in some extra moves. We know that at the start of the game, the white pieces are the pieces that get to move first, so we can say that white has the advantage of roughly one tempo at the start of the game. That's the advantage that white has. So, what are some different methods we can use throughout the game to either increase that advantage if we have the white pieces, or fight against it as the black pieces so that we can take it for ourselves? Well, let's go ahead and look at a few different positions here. The first position we have today is a bit of a tactical position. It's white to move here, and let's take a look at what's going on the chessboard. Right now, black has a pawn on f2, and he's threatening to play the move f1 and make either a queen or a rook and checkmate the white king, and that would be no good for us. Unfortunately, we can't move our bishop or our rook in order to come back and stop this. That would not have enough time to do that. And if we played the move rook to f3 to try to jump into the middle here, f1 still works because after he makes that queen, rook would take the queen, and then rook takes our rook, and it's still checkmate. So we don't have a good way of stopping this queen. We've got to do something else. What else is happening here? Well, let's think. If we had two moves with white, what would we want to do? We see that black's king is stuck in the corner here, and we've got two nice looking rooks ourselves. So if we had two moves with white, it might be nice to be able to play maybe this rook over to h6, and then we could take on h7, deliver checkmate ourselves. But we only get to move once. We don't get to move twice. So how can we do something that's going to gain time? It's going to give us the chance to get in an extra move. Well, the first way that we can gain tempo, and this is an important one to know, is that we can give check. Anytime you make a move that gives check, it's a forcing move. Your opponent has to respond to it, and after he responds, it's going to be your move again. So our opponent wants to play f1 and make the queen, but if we find a move that gives a check, we can get an extra move in. So what's the solution to this problem here? See if you can take a minute, look at it for yourselves if you haven't come up with a solution already. Anybody got any ideas? That's right, folks. We're going to play the move rook takes h7 check. The only check we have to give in this position. And black, well, he only has one response. He's going to have to take the rook with the king. And if you haven't seen it already, what's the follow-up here? Rook to h6, the idea we had before. The bishop now is the one defending the rook, and look at that, it covers all the squares. This, ladies and gentlemen, is checkmate, and we've come back and won this game as white. So the first idea for gaining that tempo, give a check. Now, what other ideas do we have in mind? Well, here's our second position. In this position, we've got something that looks like it's come out of an opening. White has been developing his pieces, and black decided to take this pawn on b2 with his queen. So black's queen is coming into the enemy position. Now, anytime our pieces move further into enemy territory, one of the disadvantages of this is that they can be more easily attacked. So we have white here. We see the queen has come far to our side. Maybe there's a way that we can take advantage of this, right? Well, if we look at all of our different attacking moves, and maybe things like rook to b1, it doesn't quite fully trap the queen. It would gain time, it would gain a tempo here, but we want to see if we can find a way to lock that queen all the way in. The second way we can gain a tempo, so perhaps be able to make more than one move here, is that we can attack a stronger piece, a more powerful piece, with a weaker piece, right? Or we can do what's called just attacking a hanging piece. This queen is not protected right now. Nothing is defending the queen. So if we attack it, that queen should have to move. Well, there's a very nice way here that we can actually end up trapping this queen. First, let's look what squares can the queen come to. If it's the black to move, the black could play the queen to c3 or b4 or back to b6. So it would be nice if we could cover all of these squares and get it locked in here. The biggest retreat would be the b6 square back here. So let's play a move that covers that. We'll go ahead and go knight to c4. So now the knight covers c6, and the queen is attacked on b2. Two options here. The queen can either play queen c3 or queen b4 like we mentioned, but either way it's not going to matter. Let's go ahead and look at queen to c3 check. Now how can white win the black queen? Well, we have to get out of the check, but now we can do it with tempo. Bishop d2, and the bishop covers the whole diagonal here. The knight is defended by our bishop. These squares are covered. d4 is protected by the knight. b3 is protected by the pawn. The rook guards a3. b2 is protected by our knight, and a1 is protected by our queen, so all of the queen's squares are covered. And oh no, black has gone too far into the white position. He's going to lose this queen. The best he's going to have, he could give it up for a rook here. Queen takes rook, queen takes queen, and happy days for white. So how did we gain a tempo in this position? Well, we saw that hanging queen. We knew we couldn't capture it in one move. We wanted to get two moves to attack it. So what did we do? Attack the hanging piece. Knight c4, and then bishop d2. What about the third way? Well, we mentioned it a little bit there. It's kind of a similar idea. But rather than attacking a hanging piece, another thing we can do is just attack a protected piece with a weaker one. So what do we mean by that? Well, we've talked about the values of our pieces in chess, the bishops and knights being about 3, the rooks 5, the queens 9. So when a piece is under attack by another piece that's of lesser value, we tend to want to move it away because, well, we don't want to give up our stronger piece for a weaker one, right? If we attack a bishop, like say this bishop on e5 with our knight, that doesn't necessarily gain a tempo because it's an even trade. So if we were to play knight to h4, the knight and the bishop are both worth 3. The knight would be attacking the bishop, that's true, but black doesn't have to move it. He can still allow this trade, that's still an option. But what if we attack a stronger piece with a weaker one? So we've got a couple ways we could do that here. One would be the move c3. We're attacking a bishop with our pawn. Now black is going to have to move this bishop, and after he does, we can make yet another move. So maybe black plays the move bishop to e7 here, and now we could gain even another tempo if we want. Maybe the move knight to c4. Now we're doing what we mentioned the last time, attacking that hanging piece, and after black moves his queen, look at our position. 2 moves ago, we hadn't gotten our pawn move in, our knight was back on d2, our bishop was blocked, and now 2 moves later, it's the black pieces who've been forced back deeper in his position. We still have the move for white, and we're being able to improve our pieces. We're gaining a little bit, we're gaining tempo. We don't always have to win material when we gain tempo. We're making small positional gains by taking advantage of time. That's our idea here, taking advantage of that time. So we can attack a weaker piece or attack a stronger piece with a weaker piece. In that way, our pawns are actually one of the strongest pieces to use to gain tempo with, because a pawn can attack any minor or major piece, and then it's going to be forced to move. So those pawns can be used very strongly if we use them wisely. Alright, what's coming up next here? We've talked about giving check, we've talked about attacking, hanging, and protected pieces. Well, another way that we can gain time is to create a threat. So we can, rather than attacking or taking a piece, we can cause another sort of threat to happen. Let's examine what's going on here. In this position, white is attacking the black bishop. This would seem as though black is going to have to move his bishop. That's what we just talked about. White's attacking the hanging piece, and black should have to move it. But black has another idea here, a way to prevent white from gaining that tempo. Black has a move which can create a threat. So what can black play here that will prevent white from being able to take his bishop on d5, that will keep that tempo? Take a little think about it here, because it's a difficult move to see if you haven't seen this idea before. Black to move in this position. Well, the move is going to be b3. b3 for black. And what is the idea here with this move? Well, after black plays b3, white is going to come and play the move bishop takes d5, or if he does, then black is going to push pawn to b2. Now, how is white going to stop this pawn? The rook over here is defending the whole row, so white can't move his rook behind the pawn. He would have to play his rook after d5, back to d1, but the pawn is already on b2. So then we could play b1 equals queen, rook takes pawn, but if we do that, then we've got rook takes rook, and that would be all she wrote. Rook takes rook would be checkmate in this position. So, after the move rook takes bishop, it doesn't end up working out. Black can create a threat with the move b3, and that is going to prevent white from being able to take advantage. We've gained time by creating a threat. Alrighty, what's our last one that we're going to be taking a look at today? This comes from an opening position that's out of the exchange French, so the French defense exchange variation. Well, in this opening, you see that black has a pawn here. White is playing for the potential for an isolated pawn. In other words, if black plays the move d takes c4, then white is going to have a d pawn which cannot be defended by either c or e pawns, because those won't exist anymore. So black likes the idea of being able to take here, but there's a way that black can make a slight improvement. If black takes immediately, white has the option to develop his bishop. He can play bishop takes c4, and it's nice for white, nice normal developing move. So what we want to do with black here, a way to gain a tempo, is that rather than taking the pawn immediately, we're going to wait. We're going to play other moves until white develops his bishop. So let's play the move knight f6 here, and then maybe white plays bishop d3. Well, now white has moved that bishop out. It already moved once, so if we now play d takes c4, the bishop takes it back, and now it took that bishop 2 moves to get to the c4 square. So we gained a tempo because we waited for that move in the middle there. So a way that we can gain a tempo is that if a piece moves along a diagonal or along a rank or file with the queen or the rook, and we capture after it does so, and that makes it move a second time along that same rank, file, or diagonal, then we can gain that tempo because we're making our opponent take 2 turns to get to the same square. So let's go back and look at that again. In this position, if we play d takes c4, bishop takes c4, and then if we went knight to f6, it looks exactly the same, except it's white's move. Now, rather than taking the pawn first, we play knight f6, then after bishop d3, now we take exactly the same position, but it's our move, it's black's move, so we've gained a tempo. So let's go ahead and review all those again quick. How can we gain a tempo? Well, first way, we can give that check. Giving a check forces our opponent to respond, and we're going to gain a tempo from that. Second way, attack the hanging piece. If a piece is out there flapping in the wind, give it an attack, and we're going to have to move it if we don't have something else that we can do. Next, attack a stronger piece with a weaker piece. When we use those pawns to attack, People don't want to give up their bishops and knights for pawns. They don't want to give up their queens for bishops. So attack the stronger piece with the weaker one, and that's one other way we can gain a tempo. Fourth, create a threat. So it might not be a capture, like we've mentioned before, with attacking hanging pieces or stronger pieces, but maybe it's a checkmate. Maybe it's the threat of promoting a pawn. We're creating another threat that has to be responded to, and that's going to gain us time. And lastly, the little bit more advanced concept, but making a recapture after an opponent moves where we're going to make that piece move twice. So when we can capture a piece, rather than doing it right away, perhaps we wait for the protecting piece to move on the same rank file or diagonal, and then we recapture after that, causing our opponent to make 2 moves to get to the same square. Those are 5 ways that we can gain tempo. If you have any others, feel free to share them in the comments. Feel free to give some other examples below. And if you have any questions about anything, make sure to put those there as well. Hopefully you'll be gaining tempos in your games to come here, improving your positions, and winning your games that you have yet to play. Best of luck to you, and wishing you all the best.